With Elon Musk earlier in the program, discussing Twitter and free speech and the impact of social media platforms on elections. The second installment of part one, part two, comes tonight, as I understand it, was a discussion between Tucker and Musk on artificial intelligence. And it was interesting, Musk's perspective. Now, he's one of the signatories of this petition that started to pause AI. And there's opposition to that, including from me, even though I recognize some of the dangers that people are pointing to. We've discussed them in some detail on this show with tech nerds. But this is Musk's case on the need for regulation of AI. Take a listen.
So I think we should be cautious with AI, and I think there should be some government oversight because it affects it's a danger to the public. And so when you have things that are a danger to the public, like let's say, so food and drugs. That's why we have the Food and Drug Administration, right, and the Federal Aviation Administration, the FCC. We have these agencies to oversee things that affect the public, where there could be public harm. And you don't want companies cutting corners on safety and then having people suffer as a result. So that's why I've actually for a long time been a strong advocate of AI regulation. So that I think regulation is, it's not fun to be regulated. It's somewhat arduous to be regulated. I have a lot of experience with regulated industries because obviously automotive is highly regulated. You could fill this room with all the regulations that are required for a production car just in the United States. And then there's a whole different set of regulations in Europe and China and the rest of the world. So very familiar with being overseen by a lot of regulators. And the same thing is true with rockets. You can't just willy-nilly shoot rockets off, not big ones anyway. Because the FAA oversees that. And then even to get a launch license, there are probably half a dozen or more federal agencies that need to approve it, plus state agencies. So I've been through so many regulatory situations, it's insane. And sometimes people think I'm some sort of like regulatory maverick that sort of defies regulators on a regular basis, but this is actually not the case. Once in a blue moon, rarely I will disagree with regulators. But the vast majority of the time, my companies agree with the regulations and comply.
Right. Spoken like a true Biden voter. There's a problem with that philosophy, particularly everything he knows about government. And this is the disconnect that exists even with somebody as brilliant as Elon Musk in so many respects. Now, he went on and he actually had read some really interesting anecdotes. I'm not talking about the AI side. He knows this very well. He was an animator of OpenAI, which led us to ChatGPT, and he broke ranks with Larry Page at Google because Google had this goal of making AI God, digital God. And he shares this funny story where when Elon Musk essentially suggested, we have to have humanity in mind here, Larry Page called him a speciesist. Like he was discriminating against other living organisms in favor of human beings. And Musk is like, guilty as charged. I'm a speciesist because I think we need to think about humanity here first. So I'm completely in agreement with that. And it shows you how ridiculous Larry Page is and how dangerous he and Sergey over at Google are. But nonetheless, on the dangers of AI and whether the pause should be taken and government regulators should step in, I'll give Musk the last word until we turn to our next guest, Jonathan Hoenig. And he sort of crystallized one of the dangers in his conversation with Tucker.
Going with old sayings, the pen is mightier than the sword. If you have a super intelligent AI that is capable of writing incredibly well and in a way that is very influential, convincing, and then and is constantly figuring out what is more convincing to people over time, and then enter social media, for example, Twitter, but also Facebook and others, and potentially manipulates public opinion in a way that is very bad. How would we even know?
All-knowing AI and the dangers. Well, manipulating public opinion in a way that's very bad. I mean, isn't that what the DC press corps does?
Right.
How would we even know? Well, because we have people like you at Twitter that are providing a marketplace of ideas. How do we even know is because we have some people that can suss out scams and other people that fall for them. But a government agency, I mean, this is always the, businesses cut corners. Do government agencies cut corners? Can government agencies be corrupted? Can government agencies be captured by entities they're tasked with regulating? I mean, do we have any lived experience with government agencies as the great protector of the public, as opposed to a competitive marketplace that breeds transparency? I appreciate Musk in many respects, but he has this hurdle he still hasn't been able to clear. Thus, his vote for Biden, as he says, in 2020. And the hurdle is reliance on government. And government, all these problems with government. I was appalled at what I saw when I took over Twitter, how the intel agencies and federal agencies were influencing what was and was not allowed to be expressed on Twitter. But yet there are some other agencies in this apparatus that we can count on to be altruistic and just call balls and strikes. For more on this, Jonathan Hoenig, founding member of the Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund and Fox News contributor, author of the book, A New Textbook of Americanism, The Politics of Ayn Rand. Capitalist Pig, Jonathan Hoenig, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Dan and Amy. Good morning. There's so much to be excited about and prosperous about in the economy, but there's so much to be worried about and pretty concerned about at the same time. And AI isn't even the top of my list, Dan. I'm excited about, Dan and Amy, I'm excited about AI. I'm excited about new technologies. What I'm worried about is exactly what you alluded to, government. Today is not just tax day, Dan. It's tax freedom day. So what that means is now, just today, you can actually start earning money for yourself.
Wait a second. Tax freedom day. Wait. Tax freedom day is no longer in May in this country?
Well,
how did it move up?
There's just in, Dan.
There's two of them, actually. There's one that includes the entitlements and the long-term liabilities, and the one that simply concerns the amount of money you need to work, the amount of time you need to work to actually start to earn money for yourself. This year it's April 16th. But think about that. It's more than a quarter of the year you spend working for Uncle Sam. So, if AI can make my job easier, make our lives easier, more prosperous, I think it can. What worries me, as I said, is the long hand of government, not just getting into AI technology, but getting into our lives more and more and more. And it's not just the taxes, Dan and Amy, of course. It's inflation. That is what continually is just absolutely suffocating not just the economy, but the middle class in particular.
Well, the tax bill I just paid yesterday,
yeah,
I feel like I've got another quarter at least before I get to work for myself. Holy cow. But anyway, no, I know I'm one of the people not paying their fair share and so on.
But this is your last time you're going to have to file in Illinois, right?
No, I don't file in Illinois.
Okay.
No, I don't file in Illinois. But that's a state issue. I'm talking about my federal tax bill that I just paid is, I was walking with a limp yesterday. It's like a hammering, Jonathan.
Well, Dan, look, you're feeling it. Every American is feeling it. An amazing stat out earlier the week from CNBC. Almost 60% of Americans say that they are living paycheck to paycheck. Yep. Living a paycheck. So, where is the middle class when they can't save, they can't pull him or herself up by his or herself bootstraps like they always have in America? When the average new car financing payment is $730 a month, Dan and Amy, that's the highest on record. People paying $700 a month just to buy and finance that new car. This country certainly has problems, and I do believe it's in that government-caused inflation that's at the heart.
So Americans are going to collectively spend more on taxes in 2019 than they did on food, clothing, and housing combined. So we just have to settle for this is the way things are going to be?
The irony is that around the turn of the last century, Amy, I mean, Tax Freedom Day came in the early part of February. So think about it. It's like 2 more months of your life that government actually gave you to live back then. But as you said, and Dan, to your point, the answer is always what? Well, we need more regulations. We need another blue ribbon committee and blue chip program to make sure that, people like all of us are paying our so-called fair share. We hear more and more of that from D.C. We hear more and more of that from Springfield, and that's why this exodus continues from the high tax, the high regulation states to the lower tax, lower regulation states. But, Dan and Amy, when the entire country is a high tax, high regulation state, then you start to worry about the value of the currency and just every American's well-being over the next 5 or 10 years.
We need a new a holiday in addition to Tax Freedom Day, Tax and Regulation Freedom Day. Now we need Tax and Regulation and Adult Children at Home Freedom Day because part of what's hampering middle-income families' disposable income is kids they're still financing in their 20s.
Yes, I mean, Dan and Amy, I'm sure you were like me, kind of couldn't wait to get out of the house. Much more difficult when we were young. Much more.
There was agreement on that in my household.
Yes.
There was agreement.
Once you leave, don't come back too. No one of this in and out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, young people's credit card balances are up anywhere between 30 and 50% in just the last year. As you said, a record number of them are living at home with their parents, cohabitating with their parents. It's why almost 85% of Americans now are reporting inflation-related stress. So, this is not something that can be summed up on a spreadsheet or in one of Janet Yellen's kind of proclamations that everything is fine. Americans are feeling it. And again, I look back to that period of Dan and Amy of the 1970s. The inflation really peaked in the early 80s. It started 10 years earlier. So, this might be an economic morass that, if history is any guide, we're going to be in for 5 or 8 years more.
And what's your intuition on Fed policy for the remainder of the year? Are you where the market seems to be, 1 more quarter point increase next month, and then we hold serve, maybe even start seeing rates cut?
There is no right central plan, Dan. You know that. What is the right interest rate? There is no right interest rate for the Federal Reserve to set. So they're always creating these boom and bust cycles that they blame capitalism for. They say capitalism is boom and bust. They print the money, they cause the inflation, then they restrict the money, they cause the slowdown. So, it's really a kind of a crapshoot, if you will, I think, of where interest rates end. As a money manager over at CapitalistPig.com, it just makes a tremendously difficult period in which to invest. In fact, the best performing stocks in recent months, Dan and Amy, have actually been foreign stocks. As the U.S. dollar starts to decline, a lot of foreign stocks are outperforming. I know you've talked about gold as up near its all-time highs. So, this could be more of a systemic fundamental shift away from American assets writ large if this policy in D.C. and certainly in Springfield continues.
He is Jonathan Hoenig, the Capitalist Pig, founding member of the Capitalist Pig Hedge Fund. He just mentioned Fox News contributor, author of the book, A New Textbook of Americanism, The Politics of Ayn Rand. Jonathan, thanks as always.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. Your business and your money are in good hands with Signature Bank. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Jason Zenger, owner of Zenger's Industrial Supply and host of the Making Chips podcast, and a proud customer of Signature Bank. Through rapid growth, acquisitions of competitors, and taking over from the previous generation, Signature Bank was there with us every step of the way. Recently, the team introduced us to FinRails AP, their proprietary system for accounts payable automation. Not only did FinRails AP help us to reduce costs and create efficiencies, but it also helped minimize fraud risk. Now, our company can invest time into what we do best, supplying industrial products, metalworking tooling, contractor tools, and safety supplies to those who make, build, and create great things for our country.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Let Signature Bank turn your business vision into reality. Visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Guys, a lot of people talking about testosterone, but do your homework and be sure to go to a provider you can trust. I recommend my friends at Low T Center, where I've been getting my levels checked for the past 8 years. Low T Center exclusively specializes in men's wellness. They check all your levels, not just your testosterone, and determine the cause of any symptoms you're having, and whether you're a candidate for low T or something else like low thyroid, that is, or sleep apnea. Typically, their annual health assessment is completely covered by health insurance, and they do check everything, including PSA, your prostate levels, as well as thyroid, liver and kidney function, cholesterol